A very good morning. It's just past 8 this 27th August morning and we're back again with Breakfast Show. I'm Anil Thomas. Over the next 1 hour, we'll take you through the major happenings across India and the globe from the field of politics, business and sports. Also a regular segment on health and Good News India story. Our top focus over the day, Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in New Delhi after that successful three-nation visit. Also bad day at court for P. Chidambaram as the CBI remand now extended by 4 days in the INX media case. Sindhustan Hamara, PV Sindhu returning home to a warm welcome. We'll be getting you all this and lots more. But first up this Tuesday morning, let's take a look at the headlines we are tracking at the top of this hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in New Delhi after successful three-nation visit. In his meeting with US President Donald Trump on the sidelines of G7 summit, PM asserts that all issues between India and Pakistan are bilateral, no scope for third-party mediation. Prime Minister Modi addresses session on climate, biodiversity and oceans at G7, highlights India's large-scale efforts towards eliminating single-use plastic, conserving water and harnessing solar energy for a sustainable future. Normalcy fast returning to Jammu and Kashmir. Administration says no shortage of medicines or essential commodities in the state. Major stimulus to economy as RBI releases 1.76 lakh crore rupees surplus fund to bank for boosting growth in international news. Big boost to efforts to put out the extensive fire engulfing the Amazon rainforest. G7 pledges $22 million, while Britain and Canada too offer additional funds to protect the vast forest known as the lung of the planet. US President Donald Trump expresses readiness to meet Iran's President Hassan Rouhani and resolve differences on nuclear issues. Trump, however, says the meeting possible only if circumstances are right. And badminton queen PV Sindhu arrives to a rousing welcome after the historic win at the World Badminton Championship in Switzerland. Says she's proud to be an Indian. And now for the stories in detail. Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived home from France after a successful three-nation tour. Prime Minister visited France, United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. His visit comprised bilateral and multilateral engagements. His visits deepened India's relations with friends and projected India's voice on the global stage. PM held bilateral talks with several world leaders including UN Chief Antonio Guterres, US President Donald Trump, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson and Senegal President Macky Sall. Besides, Prime Minister also participated and addressed in the G7 summit in Biarritz, France. Prime Minister Narendra Modi held bilateral meetings with US President Donald Trump. Prime Minister Modi categorically rejected any scope for third-party mediation between India and Pakistan, saying the two countries can discuss and resolve all issues bilaterally. The two leaders appeared together to speak to the media after talks on the sidelines of the G7 summit.
भारत और पाकिस्तान के सारे इश्यूज बायलैटरल है और इसलिए हम दुनिया के किसी भी देश को इनके लिए कष्ट नहीं देते हैं.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi mincing no words. All issues between India and Pakistan are bilateral.
मुझे विश्वास है कि भारत और पाकिस्तान जो 1947 के पहले एक ही थे, हम मिलजुल करके हमारी समस्याओं पर चर्चा भी कर सकते हैं और समाधान भी कर सकते हैं.
On his part, President Trump acknowledged the stance that India and Pakistan can resolve the Kashmir issue through dialogue.
Well, we spoke last night about Kashmir, and the Prime Minister really feels he has it under control. I know they they speak with Pakistan, and I'm sure that they will be able to do something that will be very good.
Without naming Kashmir, Prime Minister Modi set the record straight, adding that besides this issue, there are many outstanding challenges for India and Pakistan to work out, from poverty elimination to eradication of diseases as well as other challenges. The PM said that the avenues for both neighbours to work together for good are many.
भारत और पाकिस्तान के बीच कई बायलैटरल इश्यूज हैं और पाकिस्तान के प्रधानमंत्री के चुनाव के बाद जब मैंने उनको टेलीफोन किया था तब मैंने उनसे कहा है कि पाकिस्तान को भी गरीबी के खिलाफ लड़ना है, भारत को भी गरीबी के खिलाफ लड़ना है, पाकिस्तान को भी अशिक्षा के खिलाफ लड़ना है, भारत को भी अशिक्षा के खिलाफ लड़ना है, पाकिस्तान को भी बीमारी के खिलाफ लड़ना है, भारत को भी बीमारी के खिलाफ लड़ना है। हम दोनों देश मिलकर के गरीबी के खिलाफ लड़े, हमारी असुविधाओं के खिलाफ लड़े और हम मिलकर के दोनों देश की आवाम की भलाई के लिए काम करें। ये संदेश मैंने पाकिस्तान के प्रधानमंत्री जी को भी दिया है और राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप से भी हमेशा हमारे बायलैटरल संबंधों के संबंध में बात होती रहती है।
This was the first bilateral meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump after the part abrogation of Article 370. President Trump had once offered to mediate between India and Pakistan, but his administration has maintained that Kashmir is a bilateral issue. Donald Trump's latest statement comes 3 days after French President Macron expressed support for India on the issue and said that he'll talk to Prime Minister Imran Khan to get down to dialogue instead of seeking third-party intervention for a resolution. Pakistan tried to raise the issue at the UN Security Council, calling for a meeting several times earlier this month. But all that it came away with was a closed-door meeting which saw Britain, France, Russia and the US supporting bilateral dialogue between India and Pakistan. China was the only P5 member that sided with Pakistan. The question now in everyone's mind, will Pakistan read the writing on the wall as far as the Kashmir issue is concerned? With Narendra Pratap Singh and Sudhir Yadav in Biarritz, France, Bureau Report, DD India.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi held several key bilateral meetings on the sidelines of the G7 summit. Prime Minister held meetings with US President Donald Trump, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres and Senegalese President Macky Sall. During the discussions, views were exchanged on a range of issues, including trade and investment, combating terrorism and tackling climate change. Here's more.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi held several key bilateral meetings on the sidelines of the G7 summit at Biarritz. However, the most keenly watched was the meeting between Prime Minister Modi and US President Donald Trump. After the meeting, the US President tweeted, "Just wrapped up a great meeting with my friend, Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India, at the G7 summit in Biarritz in France."
We've had a lot of achievements. We have an achievement with Prime Minister Modi because we're doing great trade. We're doing a lot of trade with India. That's an achievement.
Prime Minister Modi also reciprocated the sentiment in a tweet and said, "Excellent meeting with @POTUS, @real Donald Trump. We had useful discussions on bilateral matters. We agreed to address trade issues for mutual benefit soon. Looking forward to expand cooperation as large democracies for the benefit of our citizens and global peace and prosperity." Besides Jammu and Kashmir, the two leaders also held discussions on strengthening India-US strategic partnership with a focus on energy and trade.
Prime Minister spoke of the importance of energy imports from the United States. He referred to the fact that $4 billion worth of imports were already in the pipeline and that we expected to step it up. As you know, Prime Minister will be visiting the United States next month. And in that context, he is going to have a roundtable with the top CEOs of energy companies.
Prime Minister Modi had also held a bilateral meeting with Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Boris Johnson, on Sunday. This was the first meeting between the two leaders after Boris Johnson assumed charge as UK Prime Minister. During the discussions, PM Johnson hailed Prime Minister Modi's leadership on efforts to tackle climate change. Prime Minister Narendra Modi informed Boris Johnson about the efforts taken by India against single-use plastic on the occasion of the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. The Prime Minister said that India stands with Britain in these times of change. The discussions also focused on strengthening bilateral ties going forward in trade and investment, defense and security, science and technology, and education sectors.
Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Mr. Boris Johnson, specifically spoke about the need to develop the partnership between the two countries, and he understood that it is important for access to be given for talented Indians to the United Kingdom.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi and United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres also held wide-ranging talks on Sunday. PM Modi and the UN chief discussed India's participation in the Climate Action Summit, in the United Nations and other issues of mutual interest. The meeting between Antonio Guterres and PM Modi took place in the backdrop of revocation of special status in Jammu and Kashmir under Article 370 and division of the state into two union territories.
Essentially, Prime Minister has laid out our basic position on the internal matter that Article 370 is under the Constitution, on the fact that on the international front, no step has been taken by India in any way or form to threaten regional peace and stability, on the fact that normalcy is returning to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. The UN Secretary General's primary aim of calling on PM was the climate change summit. That is his priority. Prime Minister has said we will stand by him on this.
Prime Minister Modi also held discussions with Senegal President Macky Sall on the sidelines of the G7 summit. Senegal is one of India's trusted African partners. The two leaders discussed bilateral ties, including development partnership and cooperation in counter-terrorism and international fora. With Arindra Pratap Singh in Biarritz, DD News.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed two key sessions at the G7 summit. One was on biodiversity, oceans, climate, while the second was on digital transformation. Prime Minister showcased India's journey in both fields. President Emmanuel Macron announced a $20 million emergency fund for Amazon countries to tackle the forest blaze.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi participating in the G7 summit for the first time. He addressed the session on biodiversities, oceans and climate. Prime Minister highlighted India's large-scale efforts towards eliminating single-use plastic, conserving water, harnessing solar energy and protecting flora and fauna for a sustainable future.
Prime Minister himself spoke of the initiative on single-use plastic. We are launching a national campaign against plastic waste in the oceans and against single-use plastic.
G7 leaders discussed a deal on technical and financial help for the Amazon. French President Emmanuel Macron announced $20 million emergency fund to help Amazon countries affected by rainforest fires.
The Amazon captures 14% of the carbon dioxide in the world, and so the loss of the main lung of the planet is a global problem. No country can say that it doesn't affect them, even if every country has to be respected in its sovereignty. It is impossible to compensate for the role of the Amazon.
A record number of fires are ravaging the rainforest, many of them in Brazil, drawing international concern because of Amazon's importance to the global environment. US President Donald Trump missed the session as French President Emmanuel Macron launched the session on climate change. Macron presented G7 leaders and guests with a watch made out of polluting plastic retrieved from the ocean.
This watch is a product of full recycling, and so it is an illustration of what we want to do, because it is done with polluting plastic that was recuperated from the oceans for the bracelets that you have attached.
Leaders of the G7 member states and countries also met to tackle digital transformation. Prime Minister Modi led the dedicated session of G7 Biarritz Summit on digital transformation. He highlighted India's role in putting digital technology to use to fight social inequalities through empowerment and inclusion. Prime Minister Modi's address at the session comes a day after he launched the RuPay card in Abu Dhabi. French President Emmanuel Macron chaired the meeting with leaders of Britain, Canada, Germany, Italy and Japan, joined by EU, South Africa, Chile, Australia, India and the OECD. With Arindra Pratap Singh and Sudhir Yadav, Bureau Report, DD India.
External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar will be on a two-day visit to Moscow from today, during which he will meet his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov and discuss regional and international issues of mutual interest. Jaishankar and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov will take stock of the preparations for the forthcoming visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to participate in the 5th Annual Eastern Economic Forum as the chief guest and the 20th Annual Bilateral Summit between the two countries. It will be Jaishankar's first visit to Moscow since the assumption of key office. The situation in Jammu and Kashmir continues to be peaceful, with people continuing with their normal routines. The administration is keeping the supply chains replenished. Most phone lines are operational. People continue to repose their trust in the administration as development work picks up pace. Moving to Karnataka, in a first, Karnataka will have 3 deputy chief ministers as Chief Minister B.S. Yadurappa on Monday allocated portfolios to 70 newly appointed ministers who were inducted into the cabinet nearly a week ago. Among the 3 deputy chief ministers are Govind Karjol, who has also been given the charge of PWD and social welfare, Ashwant Narayan, the portfolio of higher education, IT, BT and science and technology, and Lakshman Savadi with transport department. Baswaraj Bhumai gets the home portfolio. Jawaharlal Nehru University Students' Union this time will have 43 councillors, the university poll panel has said. Till last year, the number of councillors was 31, but due to an amendment made by the JNU-SU constitution, the number has now gone up to 43. Some of the schools where the number of councillors have been increased are the School for Sanskrit and Indic Studies, School of Engineering, Special Center for Molecular Medicine and School of Arts and Aesthetics. The nomination for the elections will be filed today. The JNU Students' Union polls will be held on September 6th, while the results will be announced on September 8th. The Indian Institute of Technology in Guwahati has launched 4 new courses from the 2019 academic session, including 3 international programs with Gifu University in Japan. The new programs include M.Tech in Data Science, International Joint Master's Degree Program in Food Science and Technology, International Joint PhD Program in Food Science and Technology, and International Joint PhD Program in Integrated Mechanical Engineering. These new programs were initiated by the Institute given the rising demand and interest of students in these areas. The new curriculum is designed keeping in view diversity of the students' frontier, interdisciplinary areas and emphasizing on the foundational subjects. A bus service between Nepal's capital Kathmandu and Siliguri in West Bengal has started. Nepal's Minister for Physical Infrastructure and Transportation, Raghubir Mahaseth, and Indian Ambassador Manjeev Singh Puri flagged off the bus from Kathmandu last evening. This is the 11th bus service between the two countries.
In yet another step to enhance connectivity between India and Nepal, a bus service from Kathmandu to Siliguri was launched on Monday. Speaking on the occasion, Nepal's Minister for Physical Infrastructure and Transportation, Raghubir Mahaseth, said the bus service will bring people from two countries more closer and increase tourism between India and Nepal. Indian Ambassador to Nepal, Manjeev Singh Puri, said Nepal has deep-rooted relations with the people of Siliguri and Darjeeling, and the bus service will further strengthen it.
Siliguri, उस एरिया से लोग सदियों से काठमांडू आते रहे, यहाँ पर अपना व्यवसाय करते हैं, कई लोग तो बहुत अच्छे चीज करें और गीत लिखे यहाँ पर, राष्ट्रगान निर्माण किया और हम लोग भानुभक्त भी शेयर करते हैं। मैं मानता हूँ कि ये जो बस लिंक है, इसकी बहुत डिमांड होगी।
According to 2014's India-Nepal Motor Vehicle Agreement, 13 routes have been approved for operating regular bus services between the two countries.
11 रूट है आज ये ओपनिंग कर रहा है। 11 रूट में हम लोग आज काठमांडू से सिलीगुड़ी, वेस्ट बंगाल का सिलीगुड़ी, काठमांडू से सीधा बस का कनेक्टिविटी से हम दोनों कंट्री का पर्यटन, दोनों कंट्री का यात्रियों के लिए सुविधा के लिए हम बस संचालन कर रहा है।
44-seater air-conditioned deluxe bus is also having free Wi-Fi facility. The driver and passengers are very happy with the launch of the bus.
नेपाल भारत मैत्री बस सेवा के पहली बार जा रहा हूँ सिलीगुड़ी, इसलिए हमको बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है।
इसमें तो गाड़ी तो पहली बार जा रहा है ये, अब चलते चलते कैसा महसूस होगा उसके बाद न मालूम होगा।
मुझे तो बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है क्योंकि मैं अक्सर ट्रैवलिंग करता रहता हूँ नेपाल टू सिलीगुड़ी, और इस बस का तो मेरे को बहुत आगे से इंतज़ार था। सो आज वो भी विशेष भी फुलफिल हो गए और मुझे बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है। जैसे कि हम लोग को अब काकरविता आने नहीं पड़ेंगे, सिलीगुड़ी से ही हम लोगों को ये बस मिल जाएंगे, तो बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है।
The bus will complete 650 km journey between Kathmandu and Siliguri in approximately 18 hours. It will leave Kathmandu daily at 3 p.m. and reach Siliguri via Kakarvitta Panitanki border next day at around 9 a.m. The bus fare is 2000 Nepali rupees and tickets would be available online. The bus is expected to further enhance age-old friendly relations with Nepal. Rajkumar's report for DD News from Kathmandu.
Well, moving to international stories, G7 has agreed to spend $22 million to tackle the huge forest fires engulfing the world's biggest Amazon rainforest. This was stated by presidents of France and Chile on Monday at the G7 summit in the French town of Biarritz. The G7 group, comprising Britain, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan and the United States, have also agreed to support a medium-term reforestation plan which will be unveiled at the United Nations in September. The initiative was announced after G7 leaders held talks on the environment which focused on the fires destroying chunks of the Amazon rainforest. Nearly 80,000 forest fires have been detected in Brazil since the beginning of the year, a little over half in the Amazon region. In Peru, locals took up brooms, shovels and branches to fight back advancing fires at the Ampe Natural Reserve in the Apurumuri region. Over 140 hectares of forest have been burned so far. The country is battling nearly 150 fires in the dry season. These wildfires in Peru come as neighboring Brazil struggles to control tens of thousands of fires in the Amazon region. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has said he was prepared to take Brexit talks with the European Union down to the very last minute before the October 31st exit deadline, and if necessary to take a decision to leave without a deal on that day. Speaking at the G7 summit in Biarritz, the UK Prime Minister repeatedly refused to rule out suspending Parliament in order to force through a no-deal Brexit should an agreement with Brussels not be possible. In the closing press conference of his first international summit, an exuberant Boris Johnson said the chances of a deal depend exclusively on the European Union and whether they were prepared to strip the Northern Ireland backstop plan out of the Brexit agreement. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau jogged up a hill at the G7 summit venue in the French coastal resort of Biarritz as the meeting wrapped up on Monday. It's not the first time the cameras have caught the Canadian leader outpacing his bodyguards. Earlier on Monday, an Australian television crew filmed him running. US President Donald Trump said he was prepared to meet his Iranian counterpart Hassan Rouhani in the next few weeks after talks over Tehran's nuclear program at a G7 summit in France. Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif made a surprise appearance on the sidelines of the summit in Biarritz at the invitation of French President Emmanuel Macron. The French president said that the conditions for a meeting between Trump and Rouhani has been created through intensive diplomacy and consultations. At a joint press conference with Macron, President Trump said if the circumstances were correct, he would certainly agree to meet. Asked by reporters if he thought that the timeline proposed by Macron sounded realistic, Trump said it does and added that he thought Rouhani would also be in favor. US President last year unilaterally pulled out of a landmark 2015 international deal that placed limits on Tehran's nuclear activities in exchange for trade, investment and sanctions relief. Johnson & Johnson has been found liable of fueling an opioid epidemic in Oklahoma by deceptively marketing painkillers. The drug maker has been ordered to pay damages of $572 million, which will be used to address the epidemic over the next 30 years through addiction treatment and prevention programs. Johnson & Johnson has, however, denied wrongdoing, saying its marketing claims had scientific support and that its two painkillers accounted for a tiny fraction of opioids prescribed in Oklahoma. Thus, it also said that it would appeal. The case brought by the Oklahoma Attorney General was the first to go to trial out of thousands of lawsuits filed by the state and local governments against manufacturers and distributors. Moving ahead, one of the oldest Moscow nunneries constructed in the 14th century caught fire late on Monday night. The fire started at the top floor of a dormitory of the Rosdest-Vensky convent, also called as the Convent of Nativity, and spread to almost 400 square meters. Investigations have begun on what caused the fire and how much damage has been done to the historical building. Spanish Navy specialists on Monday detonated an old explosive device dating back to the Spanish Civil War that has been found underwater just off one of Barcelona's most popular beaches, Sebastian. The beach remained closed to the public on Monday, having been evacuated on Sunday afternoon after an off-duty police officer discovered the unexploded cannon projectile 25 meters from shore. The shell, thought to be dating back to the 1936-39 Spanish Civil War, and contains 70 kilograms of the explosive TNT that was moved with floating devices 1 nautical mile out of sea and to a depth of some 40 meters, where it was successfully detonated. Well, time now to get on board my colleague Achal to get us the latest in the world of finance and business.
Well, thank you very much, Anil. And today is the second trading day session. That's Tuesday. Let's have a look at those news which are making headlines in the world of business. And firstly, we are going to talk about RBI. RBI at its board meeting decided to transfer a whooping 1.76 lakh crore to the centre, including interim dividend of rupees 28,000 crore paid in February, which is likely to address the fiscal situation of the government to a great extent. The surplus transfer, commonly called dividend, is almost double the previous record of rupees 65,896 crores. The RBI had formed a committee chaired by former Governor Bimal Jalan to review its economic capital framework and suggest the quantum of access provision to be transferred to the government. This is a bonanza for the government and the markets, as the analysts believe. Last days for filing annual GST returns has been extended by 3 months to November 31st as taxpayers were facing technical problems in furnishing returns. Finance Ministry stated yesterday. Earlier, GST taxpayers were to file the required returns by August 31, forms GSTR 9, GSTR 9A and reconciliation statement in the form GSTR 9C for the financial year 2017-18 is extended from August 31st, 2019 to November 30th, 2019. And now news from Indian stock markets. Indian stock market index had its best in the 3 months as a number of government measures to revive economic growth and hopes of progress in China-US trade talks helped boost sentiment. After volatile trading through most of the session, Sensex was up by 793 points to close at 37,494, while the broader Nifty settled at 11,057. On Friday, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman outlined a raft of major measures to an attempt to lift consumer sentiment and promised more actions soon to revive slowing economic growth. And that's all we have in this edition of Finance World. Back to Anil for more updates.
Well, thank you, Achal, for those updates. Time now to shift focus to sports. And first up is football. Romelu Lukaku scored on his debut for Inter Milan as they convincingly beat 10-man Lecce. The Belgium striker signed by Inter for a club record fee of 80 million euros or 74 million from Manchester United on 8th of August stabbed in the third goal in the 60th minute. Marcelo curled in Inter's opener and Stefano Sensi's drive made it 2-0. Antonio Candreva's 30-yard drive completed the victory after Lice's Diego Farias was sent off for a nasty-looking challenge. Lukaku, who hit 42 goals in 96 games for United after joining from Everton for 75 million in July 2017, has now scored on his league debut for each of his past 4 clubs. Inter boss Antonio Conte, who replaced Luciano Spalletti in May, has identified Lukaku as a key summer target and was pleased with his star signing. Well, moving to the final Grand Slam of the year, the US Open, Novak Djokovic began his US Open title defense in style with a 6-4, 6-1, 6-4 win over Spaniard Roberto Carvalho-Baena in the first round action on Monday afternoon. The top-seeded Serbian, who has claimed 4 of his last 5 Grand Slam titles, took some time to settle into his first career meeting with Carvalho. But after a first tight set, he was off the races. Djokovic got an early break and got ahead 2-0 in the second set and never looked back, as a 3-time champion used a mix of deft volleys, solid movement and great instincts to secure the win. Up next for Novak Djokovic will be Argentine Juan Ignacio Londero, who saw off American Swam Querrey in 4 sets. French Open champion Ash Barty survived a first-round scare at the US Open, starving off 25-year-old Zarina Diaz 1-6, 6-3, 6-2 after struggling to find a footing as the action kicked off at the Arthur Ashe Stadium. The unseeded Diaz from Kazakhstan took 5 straight games in the first set as the world number 2 committed a string of unforced errors and got in just 25% of her first serves. Barty was able to stop the pain midway through the second set, converting on a crucial break point opportunity to take a 5-3 lead and reverse the momentum in what had been a one-sided match. The 23-year-old Australian, who reached the 4th round last year, appeared to be back on form by the third set, getting in nearly 2/3 of her first serves and firing off 12 winners. Third seed Karolina Pliskova survived a tough encounter with fellow Czech Teresa Martinkova, coming through 2 tiebreakers to claim 7-6, 7-6. Really, Opelka secured an upset victory, defeating 11th seed Fabio Fognini 6-3, 6-4, 6-7. To win his first main draw match at the tournament. Next up for Opelka is a second round meeting with qualifier Dominique Kofka or Spaniard Jom Monal. Kristina Mladenovic upset former world number 1 Angelina Kerber 7-5, 0-6, 6-4 on Monday to put an early end to the 2016 US Open champions bid for a second trophy at Flushing Meadows. The outcome registered as a surprise but not quite a shock, as Kerber in recent months has not looked like a player who won both the US and Australian Opens in 2016 before capturing the Wimbledon championship last year. Well, on to Indian aspect in the US Open. Sumit Nagal, making his debut in the main draw at the US Open, showed no nerves as he faced Roger Federer in the ninth session of the final Grand Slam of the year. Sumit matched Roger on the big stage in the ninth session at the Arthur Ashe Stadium in a match televised all over the world. Sumit showed his no-holds-barred game as he broke Federer twice in the first set to pocket it 6-4. But after that, Roger Federer has won the next 2 sets in straight with comfortable breaks, winning the next 2 sets 6-1, 6-2. So it's 3 sets. After 3 sets, Roger Federer is 4-6, 6-1, 6-2 leading there. From not getting a entry into the qualifiers even for the Maharashtra Open, India's only ATP World Tour event in January this year, to the biggest court of the US Open, it's been quite the season for the youngster from Haryana after a forgettable 2018. The 22-year-old Indian staged a sensational fight back to qualify for his first ever Grand Slam debut, playing through the qualifiers to reach the main round. India's top-ranked men's singles player Prajnesh Gunaweshwaran was knocked out in the first round of the US Open 2019 on Monday. World number 88 Prajnesh lost in straight sets 4-6, 1-6, 2-6 to world number 5 Daniel Medvedev of Russia at the Lance Armstrong Stadium in New York. The straight set defeat was also Prajnesh Gunneswaran's fourth successive first round exit at Grand Slam. Notably, Prajnesh has made it to the main draw of all the 4 majors of 2019 after making his Grand Slam debut at the Australian Open this year. Ashish Kasodkar of Pune in Maharashtra has become the first Indian to complete 555-kilometer marathon, the La Ultra Marathon. The 555-kilometer marathon redefines the limits of human endurance, both mental and physical, at an altitude of 18,000 feet from mean sea level, with limited oxygen to breathe and temperatures ranging between -10 to scorching 40 degrees centigrade. For 46-year-old Ashish Kasodkar, running is only an excuse to return to the bleak yet stunning mountain regions of Ladakh. Ashish is the first Indian to complete the 555-kilometer marathon in 126 hours, which is much ahead of the target of 132 hours set. La Ultra, the High, is an ultra marathon composed of 3 separate races on the same course: 111 km, 222 km and 333 km. As the distance increases, so does the difficulties. The average elevation of Ladakh is around 10,000 feet. The race is held on the road. Its highest elevations are mountain passes with roads through them.
The challenge of this event was to go through 5 passes, which is about 18,300, 17,500, 17,600, 17,600 again, and so 5 passes. And you have a time limit of 132 hours to finish all these passes. With the cutoffs, they have about 13 cutoffs. So you have to be there at that particular time, otherwise you're disqualified. So you have to maintain those cutoffs.
This marathon redefines the limit of human endurance, both mental and physical. The runner reaches an altitude of 17,500 feet 5 times in the race. The temperature can fluctuate from 40 degrees Celsius to -12 degrees Celsius in a matter of 6 hours. Add to this progressive fatigue and susceptibility to adversities brought on by the elements makes La Ultra challenging. Thus, this is a marathon that tests both mental as well as physical endurance of any human being.
Ultra marathon is basically a mental game. You have to understand yourself. It is like a meditation. So you have to be into it. And I love to be myself. So when you spend time with yourself, it is a good thing for you. The challenges you face are the high altitude challenges. That's the main challenge.
The preparation for this type of race requires time, money and above all perseverance. Emotions run raw during such pursuits, but the euphoric feeling that awaits at the finish line is what Ashish enjoys. Only a few in the world of ultra running dare to take up this challenge. In the past 8 years, 123 runners from 23 different countries have participated and only 72 have finished the shorter versions of marathons. With Bureau Inputs, Ramesh Chandra's report, DD News, Leh. Story there. Let's time now to take a look at the top stories published in the national dailies, and our first look is at the Hindu. The front page story clearly saying Prime Minister Modi rejecting scope for any third-party mediation in Kashmir. Trump also saying that discuss the issue with Modi, India, Pakistan can resolve their issue on the own. So this particular coming Prime Minister, they are categorically rejecting any scope for any third-party mediation between India and Pakistan on Kashmir, and all issues to be discussed between the two countries bilaterally, and no need for any third party to be party to that particular discussion. Well, moving ahead, our next look is at the Indian Express. It's an interesting story on India pivotal to globe fight back against AIDS. This is the chief of vaccine, says the chief of vaccine in an initiative. There are 2 million AIDS infections every year, and about 66% of the world population currently on retroviral therapy consume drugs manufactured in India. Why is India so important? India is important because Indian pharmaceutical companies, with their ability to manufacture high quality affordable medicines, are very important in this global battle, according to the chief of International AIDS Vaccine Initiative. So clearly India, they're very much a part or playing a pivotal role in this fight back, global fight back against AIDS. Our next look is at the Indian Express, and it's for parents who are watching this bulletin. Junk the habit. That's what it says, that fruit juice may be doing your kid more harm than good. This is fast tracking into troubles. It says don't give your children too much of fruit juices or drinks. It says if given, it should be limited to just 125 ml per day for children between the age of 2 and 5 years and 250 ml per day for kids above 5 years. It's a serious concern that parents need to look at, because of the 200 kids that were surveyed in the 9 to 14 age group, 93% said that they ate packaged foods in some form or the other. So parents need to be careful on what they give their kids, because all these chips, all these fast food joints that provide these food could be dangerous there at the end of the day. Our next look is at the Mail today. Sports Minister Kiran Rijiju saying that he's visited NDTL and he's vowing that he's going to enhance the capacity of the National Dope Testing Laboratory, and reassuring the staff there that the Sports Ministry will offer full support to enhance its capacity. That's not all. It will also look or ensure that the NDTL works in confirmation with the international standards for laboratory, because recently NDTL lost its accreditation from the World Anti-Doping Agency after many flaws were found in the IRMS system. So clearly the Sports Minister taking things hands-on, visiting the lab, reassuring the staff there that things will be back in order. Our last look is at the Hindustan Times. Chandrayaan 2 captures the moon surface, the visual of which has been dispatched by ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organization, releasing a fresh set of images captured by Chandrayaan 2, and these are of various craters there. Remember, it is that a particular Chandrayaan 2 is scheduled to make a soft landing on the south polar region of the moon on September 7th. So we still got many more days for that to happen, but we got to keep our fingers crossed, because that's going to be an important moment for history, because India is going to be joining that elite league of 3 other countries, US, China and Russia, to join that elite league where they are able to take a landing on the moon. Well, after a look at the English newspapers there, it's time now to take a jog down memory lane and look at all the major happenings that took place on this very day in history.
On this day in 1908, Australian cricketer Don Bradman was born at Cootamundra in Australia. Bradman made the average of 99.94, which is considered as the greatest achievement by any sportsman. On the same day in the year 1976, versatile playback singer Mukesh passed away in Michigan. He is known to be the voice of legendary actor Raj Kapoor in Hindi songs. Mukesh won the National Film Award for Best Male Playback Singer for his song Kai Baar Yun Hi Dekha Hai. Last Viceroy of India, Lord Mountbatten, was killed on this day in a bomb blast in the year 1979. Nicholas, the grandson of Mountbatten, also passed away in the same massive blast. On this day in the year 2006, Padma Vibhushan awardee Rishikesh Mukherjee passed away in Mumbai. He is known for movies like Golmaal, Chupke Chupke and Ashirwad.
Well, we now take a look we come back to the present and take a look at the events that are listed for today.
Union Minister for Environment, Forest and Climate Change Prakash Javadekar to hold the curtain raiser press conference at National Media Centre in New Delhi on conference of the parties of the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, which will be held in India from 2nd to the 13th of September. Union Minister for Chemicals and Fertilizers D.V. Sadanand Gowda to attend the launch of mobile app Jan Aushadhi Sugam and Jan Aushadhi Suvidha sanitary napkin at Safdarjung Hospital in New Delhi. Union Minister of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution Ramvilas Paswan will brief media about the rules and regulations being formulated under the Consumer Protection Act 2019 at Krishi Bhavan in New Delhi. Ministry of Information and Broadcasting will organize 3-day-long 7th Community Radio Sammelan at Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Bhavan in New Delhi. The theme of this year's Sammelan is Community Radio for SDGs. Supreme Court to continue hearing on the petition of former Union Minister P. Chidambaram challenging the Delhi High Court order which rejected his anticipatory bail plea in the INX Media money laundering case.
While preserving and conserving the Earth's resources are the need of the hour, there are many who respect Mother Earth long before ideas of renewable energy came into vogue. Here's a report from Puducherry on a couple who began the process nearly 18 years ago and are an example for many others to follow.
These solar panels, while giving the space they occupy the look of a government building or of a corporate one, is actually the home of Dr. Brahmanand Mohanty and his wife, Aarti Mohanty of Puducherry, who built their dream home, a solar-powered one, nearly 18 years ago, when solar power was not even in vogue. In every aspect, it is a home where every object speaks of energy, efficiency, and clean energy. With no air conditioners, utmost priority has been given to designing an airy home. Food is cooked in a solar cooker, and the car is charged with electricity from solar power generated at home.
Solar investment is for long term because once you put solar, you can use it for 20 to 25 years. So payback period may be 6 years or 8 years, but after that you don't have to worry about electricity bill.
घर में सोलर कुकर में खाना बनता है और इनकी कार भी इलेक्ट्रिक कार है जो घर की सौर ऊर्जा से ही चार्ज होती है.
Every day you get food, and especially in Pondicherry, sometimes in half an hour you get your food ready. Rice, dal, you can boil your vegetables, and they are not only healthy, because it's solar cooked, it has all the goodness of the sun in it.
Dr. Brahmanand is a professor in the Asian Institute of Technology and with the help of officials in Power Grid Corporation has installed a bi-directional meter in his house. Clearly an example of a life that is ideal for the times and doable as well if one only makes the effort. From Puducherry, for Good News India, DD News.
But people making a change for the environment. Well, moving ahead now, while most teachers follow traditional teaching methods, there are few who break the stereotype and create their own techniques. One such teacher is Prafulla Kumar Pati, who's an headmaster of an upper primary school in Odisha's Koraput district. He is winning hearts of his students by his energetic way of teaching through songs and dance. Popularly known as the dancing sir of Koraput, Pati believes in its fun and active ways of learning and teaching. In a Naxal area like Koraput, children often stay absent or drop out before finishing primary education. But after this new way of teaching, there has been a boost in the attendance in the school. The teacher says it not only keeps children physically active, but also enhances their ability to learn and involve more. Clearly an innovative way to teach the young minds. Moving ahead, as we were telling you about earlier about the G7 summit pledging aid to contain Amazon forest fire, here's a special report on this.
We will straight away offer Amazonian countries that signal to us their needs financial support of at least up to 20 million euros. We must respond to the call of the forest, which is burning today in the Amazon.
Tout responsable politique si c'est dans l'intérêt de son pays.
The announcement from the G7 countries came as a big relief to the Amazonian countries fighting the raging wildfires, which has already engulfed hectares of Amazon rainforest and threatening a major environmental crisis. French President Emmanuel Macron also said that France would also offer military support in the region within the next few hours. Nearly $20 million have also been pledged by Britain and Canada. Canada has also announced deployment of water bombers in the forest.
For the future of the planet, in particular a joint plan to help our friends in Brazil and elsewhere to tackle the fires in the Amazon rainforest. And one thing I might mention, we've also extended, given another £7 million to our overseas territories to allow them to extend the marine protected areas, those areas which are going to be protected.
Alongside other G7 countries, Canada is stepping up to fight the fires in the Amazon. Canada is offering to help by sending water bombers, as well as a financial contribution of $15 million.
The decision was hailed by Brazil's Environmental Minister Ricardo Salles. The Amazon wildfires engulfing the rainforest since a long time have shown an increase of 85% this year. The fires have been sporadic and are causing serious loss to flora and fauna. The world powers coming together to protect the vast Amazon rainforests, known as lungs of the planet, from being engulfed by raging fires have raised hopes for conservationists. Bureau Report, DD News.
Well, time now to take a look at the weather in your city. Well, before we end this edition of Breakfast Show, we leave you with a positive thought to help kickstart your day. Let your dreams stay big and your worries stay small. Our watch out moment of the day comes from Odisha, primitive folk dance performance in the villages of Bhubaneswar. Take a look, stay safe, stay healthy. Have a great day ahead. Bye-bye.